All right, this is the Success Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Johnson, and we're back for season number 2. I'm super grateful to be back with you. It's been over a year since season 1. If you didn't get a chance to see those videos, go back. You can check them out on Spotify, on YouTube, lots of different platforms. Click in the description below to be able to see that. See those episodes. Y'all, there's some phenomenal interviews I have with lenders and other great people in our city. The point of our this podcast is not only to educate you, but also to inform you. I believe that everything starts with home. And all the decisions that I make, it seems now, begins with, hey, how is this going to affect me and my household? As the leader of this household and a homeowner now going on 6 years, there's a lot of information that I've come across that has been helpful for me, and so I just want to relay that and pass it on and hopefully have some great conversations in the meantime. And today I've got the most special guest that I think I could have. Today I've got with me Michael L. Johnson Sr.
What's up?
Pastor Mike, now retired, living the high life with his bride, living the high life, doing whatever he wants, or whatever mama says do. I don't know what the
all of
difference
that.
is. All
Yeah, it's just all it mixes in together.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the show, Pop.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm glad to start things off season 2 this way. I think it's important. I've talked before in an episode, just kind of the beginnings that I understand. But as a real estate agent now, I recognize some things, and I try to expound on them in episode 1. And I'll talk about a few of those here and I'll let you. But I want you to expound on, because your memory, of course, goes way deeper than mine. You can speak to some of the foundations of the Johnson family in a way that I can't, because I wasn't there. So today, wanted to start off, with a basic question of, tell us about the household that you and Mama built.
Well, the household.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the household.
Yeah.
Our household, after all was said and done, after we made an agreement to come together, as husband and wife, it was established between us that Jesus said that he that hear these sayings of mine and do them, I'll show you what that man is like, and he said he'd be like a man that built his house on a rock.
Dug deep.
He dug deep.
Mm-hmm.
Set his house on a rock, and storms came, like winds blew.
Mm-hmm.
We found out that if a storm comes, all the houses in that area, all of them are gonna get wet.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna get some wind,
Yeah.
But the difference is that it was situated upon that rock.
Mm-hmm.
So we made a decision together that from the start we were going to build our house our home on that solid foundation.
Sure.
And that was agreement that we both made.
Sure. And y'all have been married 40 years?
40 years.
40 years this year. 1982 of August 7th, 1982. Y'all
That's
just
right.
hit 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Still going strong.
Mm-hmm.
Between the two of you, y'all have 3 beautiful children.
Wonderful
children.
Yeah.
I don't think that anybody could get any better children in the whole world. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, like you said, my opinion will trump yours. So
speak the truth.
So we
In opinion form.
We consider ourselves very, very blessed.
Mm-hmm.
We have you and Charlotte and Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
We got what we want it from the Lord, and
What,
we're proud of you.
What, grandchildren? Is that what y'all wanted from the Lord, grandchildren?
Well, we had to get the children in order to get to the grandchildren.
I know. So let's get this on record first. What happens? All right, you became a grandfather, what, 16 years ago, 17, almost 17 years ago?
Yeah.
What happens when you transition from parent to grandparent? What is the switch? Because I tell all grandparents I don't like them because they're just not the people who you grow up with. What happens when you go from parent to grandparent?
Well, there is somewhere there's a switch in there. There's an automatic switch, that you flip over from parent to grandparent, and it's more about kind of like, I would say it's a you get chance to focus on one side, and that is, you can just love them, and you
ain't got to rear them up.
You ain't got to rear them up. That's supposed to be the parents' job,
right.
So you just flip that switch and flip over to GP,
Oh my gosh.
And just try to live in it.
Yeah.
And enjoy it.
Well, speaking of grandparents, from my understanding, so I've said this a couple of times. I want to get some clarification if I said these things wrong. Speaking of grandparents, who bought the land that the house I grew up in, your current house? Who bought that land originally?
Well, that land was cut out of a big family plot. My grandfather, there was, I believe, you know how a lot of those back then, there was families had several living heirs at the time. So my grandfather, while he was still alive, he made it a point to where he would get his section cut out of the big family plot, big family section, and leave it to his sons. So my dad and his brother inherited their father's portion of that land, and then from there, all right. So now they divided it between themselves, and my daddy got half of it, and his brother got half of it, which is where we are right now.
Right.
And from that, when my wife and I decided to get married, my daddy deeded a section of that land off to me and my wife.
How'd you get road frontage? So the way, and hopefully I'll be able to put up a picture for everybody to see the way.
Right on the front.
Where your house is right on the front, but the house that you grew up in was off the road, probably what? 100 yards.
100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. About 100 yards. Yeah.
What made her decide? For one, I guess I don't know if you ever knew why they decided to build so far off the road, or if that road was established, at that time the way it is now.
Well, the house that I grew up in, that's where it was. Even before it was divided.
Oh, okay.
Even before it was divided, I think that house, my understanding, my grandfather, they helped build that house. So that's where they put it. It just happened to be off and it wasn't like, it was before it was even divided.
Okay.
So after the land was divided, matter of fact, the line went right down the side of where I grew up at. So, but my dad at the time, my dad and mom, before you were born, before you were born, they were still living in that house.
Right.
So and right next to where Charlotte, where your sister lives at now, well, that was originally.
There was an old house there, wasn't it? Was there a house?
There was never a house there.
Oh, really?
There never was a house there.
What was that structure? Was it just a little? I thought there used to be a structure.
Well, you talking about up the hill? That was Uncle Rufus.
Oh, okay, okay.
That was right up on top of the hill.
Right.
Yeah, that was my dad's brothers. That was Uncle Rufus. Where you remembering?
Oh, okay.
The old structure, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right on top of the hill.
Right.
Now, where Charlotte's house sits at, that was actually supposed to have been Uncle Willie's, my brother's spot.
Ah.
So when he got married, well, see, that was supposed to be his spot, and he never used it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in his name. It was like right under half acre.
And was your house the first there besides
Yeah.
Pawpaw's?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what, Aunt Barbara's, so Aunt Barbara comes along, she builds a house behind.
No, that was where the house that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my mom and daddy moved out of that house, and that's where your pawpaw, he built that house.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that wasn't Aunt Barbara's house.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was my daddy's.
So he
after we built ours, then a few years later, they had that house built on that spot. He just moved over.
See, and that's why, because of course my only recollection is just going over there with Aunt Barbara before she passed when I was young.
You were very young.
Mm-hmm.
You were very young. I mean, you was a year old when my mother passed away.
Right.
So a lot of that you
of course, no recollection of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that house, and then my sister lived in that house for a little while till she moved out. So the house was just there. I think her daughter Tasha lived in there for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, Uncle John comes along a little bit later.
And right when the year that Charlotte graduated in 2004, that's where Uncle John
cleared some land there.
Well, it was already cleared. Your Uncle Willie signed that section of land over to him.
But, it's so funny how things change over there. I remember when the fence used to come all the way there, and then we used to climb those couple pine trees right there on the other side of the driveway. And it's kind of funny. Well, I won't go ahead. I'll come back to that in a little bit. I wanted to ask you. So I thought I remember you saying after you and Mama got married that the house was built. Basically, y'all, if I remember the details, you said about $22,000 to build the house. Was that total for everything, or is that just to put up the shell of the house?
We had the house. That house was we went through that company. There's something else now, but Jim Walter. We had them build a shell. All right. They completed the shell. And what we did, we purchased all of the material to finish it on the inside, which is, what I mean is sheetrock, insulation.
Right.
We decided to go that route, to save money. And so we did a lot of the inside work ourselves, but we basically bought a shell.
You said we. Who is we?
Well, after they finished with their part,
that's framing.
It's framing, putting the windows in. I mean, they from the foundation, they put it on the piers and framed the house. They dried it in. They put the roof on, put all the siding on, windows. Partitioned. They partitioned all of the rooms on. They just put up the wall partitions, and that was it. They put the subfloor and everything. So all we had to do was come in and complete put all of the insulation in and hang the sheetrock and get all of the electrical and plumbing work done.
Now, who designed the house?
It was off a plan, a Jim Walter.
Okay,
plan.
okay.
Yeah.
He had a plan. He just came and put it out there.
They had floor plans that they already. You could choose from like 9 or 10 floor plans from whatever size. I think our house was almost 1,200 square feet, 1,152 square feet, which was the size of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, according to the price and what we felt like we could afford, that's the one that we chose.
Sure.
And it had different designs. I mean, different, without carport, without garage or whatever. So that's what we chose.
Do you wish you had got the garage?
Now,
yeah.
Back then, I mean, when you're young and
I mean, just excited.
Yeah.
Were you excited? I mean, was it exciting for you? I mean, what's your thought process? And hey, I'm about to. I mean, that's a big step
mm-hmm.
to decide I'm gonna build a house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, was that exciting for you? Was it more troubling or?
No, it was what I wanted because I never really wanted to. I've never really wanted to rent.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to live in apartments. I didn't want to rent. I didn't want to get into that. We from the onset, from the time that we talked about getting married, we went house shopping. We had different ideas. At the time, they were down there behind McDonald's on Highway 80. They had these big houses. These old houses that we had in our mind that, like a lot of people were doing back then, they take those houses and move them out to their land and remodel them. And so that's what that's what our plan was. And the only thing that stopped that was, which I realize now, when you go into the bank and ask for money and stuff like that, if you don't have any history or anything established, we didn't have anything established as far as going in to try to get a loan. Right. So we didn't get any financial help. And
financial help, what do you mean?
Well, as far as financing to get the house moved out.
Oh, okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. We approached them to try to see if we could get some money to get it moved and set on our land, and then to get the finances for the remodel. And I mean, those houses back then were built so solid, double wood walls, and 9-foot ceilings, and it's just something that we felt like we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And the reason why we ran out of time, because we had during that time we had already set our time to get married, and so we was running out of time. Matter of fact, when we got married, we had to live with my parents.
Right.
Till the beginning of that next year.
Right.
So we had.
Also,
only other option we had
4 or 5 months at y'all.
Yeah,
That's
from
funny.
August to I remember watching the NCAA finals. It wasn't March Madness. It was one of the finals. Football. College football finals. We had was gonna move in our house, and we got our brand new little 19-inch color television, and that's how we spent our first night in our house watching that championship game, whichever was on at that time.
Yeah, and that's funny because I encourage a lot of people right now. It kind of became uncool to have to live with your parents in order to, buy a house. And I tell everybody, like, that was probably the only reason why we were able to buy a house was because we moved in with Alicia's parents, for, that was 6 months. And I didn't enjoy it, like I loved my in-laws, but I didn't enjoy not having my own space. But I mean, it was vital for us to be able to, save money. Of course, at the same time, Mikey was quickly approaching, so Alicia was with child. All those things kind of happen. A lot of times, people are just, I don't want to, I don't want to live with my parents. I'm just like, listen, you need to take that pride and set it aside, you know, in order to, especially if your parents will let you come in, you know, maybe take a bill or two, and then you're able to save the rest, you know. How important was it for y'all, you know, moving in with, and was,
well, it wasn't really, we didn't really have much of a choice other than, you know, maybe renting an apartment, and like I said from the beginning, we were really against that. And you know, sometimes your parents can kind of talk you into it too. You know, hey, look here, y'all take our room, you have your privacy, you know, and then we'll get back here, and you know, it was in the process. Like I said, when we got married, we had just shortly after that, we had agreed that we was going to pursue this. So it was already in the works, and we knew that we was eventually going to get in our place. But just the wedding bumped up against we ran out of time.
That's so funny.
We ran out of time, so we didn't want to put our wedding off.
Right.
And so we just crunched in there for a few months.
I guess you got the love. You can figure the rest out, huh? I guess I need to call Mom about this part.
You make adjustments as you go. You know? And like I said, like you said, it's awkward. It's inconvenient. You know, it's whether as a married couple, you really need that privacy. So you're not all the way. You're not all the way. I mean, and who's gonna move in with whose parents? You know. I mean, do we go? And we only had one choice. Like I said, you know. So we.
Because were you working on the house while y'all were living? So timeline wise, you're working. Y'all have already put up the shell before y'all got married.
No. It started about the same time. By the time we got married, you know, we had signed.
That's a lot of decisions.
Yeah,
y'all making at the same time.
Oh yeah. It was a busy time. You know, matter of fact, we were between that and ripping and running, trying to get everything together for the wedding and stuff. You know, we remember saying, you know, I wish we just went to the courthouse and got married, you know, because it was just such a, and then I had just started my job, you know, just a few months before we got married. I started my job in May of '82 at Texas East.
At Texas East? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I started working there in May of '82.
Oh wow!
And then three months later, we get married.
Wow.
And then on top of that, you know, I'm trying to get established on my job, and now we got this house that we have getting built, and so
you were doing a lot of the work on it yourself.
After they finished the shell, after they did what then they turned it over to us, and me and my daddy got in there, and he had gotten laid off. Matter of fact, he had gotten laid off from his job. Oh, wow. Right before we got married. So when I got home from work, he and I would get in there, and we put insulation in the ceiling and walls, and then he and I got in there and we hung sheetrock.
Did you have any prior experience of that? Or
no.
That was your first? Y'all just but he had experience.
Some. I mean, you know, just
enough.
Just enough. I mean, and it wasn't just the handling, you know, of the material. We figured out a way to, you know, to make it easy to put those sheetrock up. Built us some T-posts with the 2x4s, and instead of trying to hold sheetrock up, we would let those posts hold it up. We could knock it in place, and then and then, you know, do what we needed to do. And he hung with me. Like I said, he was off, and he would wait till I got off work, and he and I would get in there and get to work. And back then, the popcorn ceiling, the popcorn was real popular.
Right.
And
I don't understand that though.
Huh?
I don't understand that.
That was just
popcorns
at the time. Well, it was a shortcut, I believe. To keep you from having to be so careful with the taping and bedding.
Oh yeah. Cover it all.
Yeah, just cover it up, and you didn't have to be as precise and as neat.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Other trends like now, of course, open concepts.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really have that. It seemed. Well, I mean, I guess ours was kind of open. I mean, it's more open now, but the layout before, the kitchen, that wall from the hallway kind of partitioned the. It seems like a lot of those things of starting to fade.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a preference on, some of the styles there? Do you like open concept? Do y'all have open concept now?
Yeah.
Do you prefer that?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah. If we had been thinking ahead back then, we probably would have been a little more open.
Mm-hmm.
But things were done when some changes, a few little minor changes was made on the house. Matter of fact, our little house that we had was the reason why that little wall was sticking out there was because there was supposed to have been a 4-bedroom house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we didn't want those small little tiny bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So we eliminated one of them.
Okay.
And made our living room area bigger.
I'm actually glad y'all did that.
Yeah.
I mean, I always enjoyed. I mean, what's funny, about our conversation, I feel like you are able to easily recall.
Mm-hmm.
I have trouble even now. Like sometimes I've catch myself like not remembering the way our house used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so funny because that was the layout up until I think Aaron moved out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. It's not like I ever actually lived in the house with the new layout. But that's really all I can remember now. But it's so funny because you can recall all of those, those little details.
Lived it all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And as I were 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses common at that time. I mean, I don't think. Well, Papa Aunt Barbara's house, Tasha said that's not a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house.
No, but it's a little smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that one was like ours, but it was a little smaller. So mm-hmm. it was the living, dining, kitchen area is a little smaller. Mm-hmm. I think it was 100 square feet or whatever smaller than ours.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, but that was supposed to be for my
parents.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to the financing, I wanted to ask you a question because you did end up financing some for to purchase the shell and materials, or did you pay for the materials all out of pocket?
No, it was all financed through. They had a finance company that that Jim Walter used. I think it was Mid-South Homes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so we used them as our. All we had to do was if you had a piece of land, you can put your land up.
And then it all becomes.
Yeah. So
that seems dicey though. Was that? I mean. How did the family feel about that? Because you're basically now, even though it's deeded out to you,
mm-hmm.
it's at risk.
Well, that was the way that that we knew that came along with that territory there,
mm-hmm.
and it kind of made you stay on your as they say, stay on top of your game.
Yeah,
because you are jeopardizing some of your family land.
Right.
So you didn't want to lose that.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to be the one with that label.
No, you don't want that. So we just it made you responsible,
right.
and you have to have some pride and some value, and know the value of what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that kind of makes you try harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like when I look back at in our country, a lot of times they talk about things like the wealth gap between blacks and whites and things like that. I remember going back and reading about when they settled Oregon, kind of the incentive that, because it was a treacherous journey for anybody that dared to go out and settle it. But part of their the incentive that the U.S. government gave them was to, hey, here's free land. Like first several hundred people, free acreage once you get out there, and then for the rest that came out there, it was like $2 an acre or something like that. So it was real low, and then that, of course, that land becomes more valuable over time. Families, if they sell it, keep it, whatever, that's able to be passed down, different things like that. So I from my research and what I see, it seems like the biggest difference in the wealth gap that we see today is primarily because of ownership. Do you have any thoughts on what it means, of course, to get this land from your parents who got it from their parents? What does that mean to you? And what do you also have to start carving, now that Papa's no longer with us, do you have to start carving out with your brothers, hey, what is this going to look like, for us moving forward?
Well, what it meant to me then was, it really helped. It was really helpful to not have to go out and find a place. If you, it really, that helped out overall, because we didn't have to tack on the purchase of a piece of land.
Right.
See, and what it does is it kind of gives you something. Some people pass along different things to from generation to generation. It just, you want your children to know that, hey, you have options. That can help you.
That's huge.
Yeah, that can help you.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Because I tell a lot of people that's the big. So for this house, and it's crazy. We actually, Alicia just put that up.
I was looking
Johnson
at that.
family. She just put that decal up, and y'all out there, y'all don't know. Today's been kind of a crazy day. We weren't supposed to be recording here. We're getting a chance to record here, but being here in the house that Alicia and I were able to purchase. I've always said when we decided, hey, it's time for us to purchase, one thing that I want to try to keep property in our family so that the boys or their children have options once we're gone. As when I think about it, I can only imagine if even Alicia and I were married for a year and a half before we started purchasing. Like, what if we were rent free? You inherit something from a family member. Hey, you living it rent free. That was at the time we were paying $850 a month. That's over $10,000. For the year. Or if we sold the place, and I tell people, I when it gets into whoever's hands after me, it's on them. I want to show them exactly like, hey, these are your options. But to have the option of either staying in it, and jump starting your ability to save or build or whatever, is monumental. Like I said, that I think that's where that wealth gap kind of starts, is because now you've got some establishment, somebody established before you, or you could turn around and sell it. If the boys come in, our house has already grown in equity, in value over $50,000-$60,000 since we've been here, partially because of the pandemic and everything else that's going on. But that appreciation, if we were gone and the boys turned around and sold the house, that's three ways, that they could take several $1,000s to begin businesses or things like that. And I think a lot of people kind of forget. I don't think that renting is bad. I say it depends on the position that you're in.
Right.
Renting's not bad, but if you can establish something, home ownership is a way, to kind of show that you've got some foresight. Like, hey, I can see down the line. I've got vision for this bigger than myself. And it's I do think it's hard in our society to recognize that you're leaving an imprint, you're building a legacy at this point. We just drove by the pond, going down to the pond behind the house, and it's all woods now, but it is cool to talk to the boys like, hey, Granddaddy grew up over there. You can't see it now, but Granddaddy grew up over there. And, kind of the wonder in their eyes. All of that, going to your grandfather now, I'm thinking like, wow, he said, hey, I've got something for my family. And I don't know what kind of a man he was. I never met him. But to me, that speaks to being a man and having vision for your family.
Yeah. It to me, it kind of goes from one thing to another. At first, it's really about the main thing.
Survive.
But yeah, about getting, like you said, getting established. And, if you kind of start thinking about some of those things later, and I think it's different. To me, it would be different if I was somewhere else. I would be more. People say now, well, your house. I just went down and tried to argue with them about my taxes. Yeah, and they said, well, your house it would sell for this. It's worth that. I said, well, to me, it's worth a whole lot more than what y'all are saying. Well, what if you would try to sell it? I said, well, I don't even entertain that because I'm not trying to sell it.
Right.
See,
right.
So some things to me, it may be different for somebody else, but when I look at what we have and what we would pass along to our children, I think about it first and foremost, about this would make it easier on them if they choose, if they decide, and that would be something that you would think about if it was left to you. Then you'd be thinking about leaving it for somebody else.
Right.
Just in case. But the old saying, it's better to have and not need than need it and not have.
Yeah.
So our approach was, the main thing is we want to get established and make it as easy on us as we could. You have some goals of, I want to get this, I want to get it done, get it paid off, and where you can later on, if you want to breathe and relax, you can.
Yeah, right. Because how long did it take you to pay it off?
I'm gonna say about 12. Let's see, you were 1, 4, 5. You were 5 years old, so I'm gonna say 5 or 6 years old. So I'm gonna say we actually did it in about 8-9 years.
Wow. Now, was it a decision, both of y'all's decision, to try to pay it off early?
Well, it became after we went and we just heard a little speech that inspired us. We thought we was going to hear one thing, but what we went and heard, it was about getting out of debt. And so you and Aaron were with us. You don't remember? You were about 4 years old.
No, I don't remember.
We went to Houston. We listened to a preacher named John Cherry. We used to watch him on television. And
Evidence? Is that the song?
No, that was Fred Price.
That was Fred Price.
Yeah. John Cherry.
I remember. I remember. I always thought of George Jefferson when I.
Yeah.
So.
yeah. That was Fred Price. George Jefferson. Anyway, Pastor John Cherry, he was talked to that church we went to, he was talking to that church that night about getting out of debt. He gave his story about, when he was working at this bank, and this man, the owner of the bank, befriended him, and he was talking about how they built this big bank in Washington D.C. and the government wouldn't let you build anything taller than the Washington Monument. Mm-hmm. And he said, that's the only reason why they didn't build it any higher. Mm. And then he said, you know what we built this building on? And he said, what? He said, it was interest. Mm. And he understood what the man was saying, and he made a decision that day that from that time forward, he wasn't going to buy anything on credit. Mm. And he decided he was going to pay everything off and pay cash for everything else. Mm-hmm. And he told that church, he said, y'all would be surprised in 10 years if you pay this off. You'd be surprised where you would be. And we thought about it on the way home, and we looked at our debt, what we owed, and so we set ourselves a 1-year goal to get that paid off and get out of the debt that we was in. Mm-hmm. And we drained our savings account. We went and got a little small a loan from the credit union. We said we was gonna bite the bullet, and we're gonna put ourselves in this bind and get this thing done, and we did it. That was how we made a decision on that 4-hour drive from Houston. Yeah. We came up with our plan, and we decided to do it, and we jumped on it.
It is one thing to think about, like, hey, how do you really have a savings if you're in debt? It's like, yeah, you got the money in the bank, but you owe it to, somebody else, technically, So yeah, I definitely see the strategy, and that's something that we walking into. And I tell everybody that I remember, buying when we bought this house, coming to you and talking about it, and I tell everybody, I don't think that it's not a bad thing. It's a different experience. Mm-hmm. When I remember going home and thinking like, man, $22,000 for a house, I was like, man, we over $100,000 more than that, and looking at 30 years or more, you get the amortization schedule, and it's like, Lord, what have I signed up for?
It's scary.
It is a little bit scary,
Yeah.
I think things are different, but at the same time, it's like, okay, you still wind up in the place you want to be, some people, like you listen to people like Dave Ramsey right now. Hey, don't do a 30-year, only 15-year mortgages. And I understand. I do think that is probably the best way to do it. If you can do it, 15-year mortgage, pay a little bit more on it every year, pay it off early, you do save yourself a ton of money down the line. At the same time, I talked to a friend of mine who's a local lender here. He's like, man, but when you think about it, also too, if this is your way into home ownership, take the 30-year note. This is a forced savings for you. You are paying a lot of money, but you wouldn't be able to save enough quick enough to be able to buy you something, for most people's jobs, the way that wages are compared to how much things cost right now. I mean, I can only imagine somebody has a family. The family's getting smaller primarily because, things like how much it costs. They pay $700-800 every week for every couple of weeks for child care. It's like you ate up all the money that you're trying to save, and and then how you gonna buy a house and you spend it all just trying to do the basics. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, man, that seemed like it was easier. In my mind first I was like, it seems easier. It seemed like it was easier for y'all to get into home ownership, and possibly it could have been the same thing for Alicia and I. We chose not to live in Pleasant Hill on the Ridge. We decided we wanted to, because of where our families stay, we wanted to be kind of in the middle. But it is hard not to like compare, even to where her parents are now. I mean, their value has grown tremendously from when they bought their property out in Lakeport. you know, and you kind of look around like, man, y'all had it good,
Mm-hmm.
you know, y'all had it real good. But and speaking of Pleasant Hill, born there,
Mm-hmm.
raised there,
Mm-hmm.
married there,
Mm-hmm.
raised
Still
family
there.
there, still there.
And
Ever any
ain't going
dream?
nowhere.
Ain't going nowhere. You
Yeah.
ever had any desire to live anywhere else?
Mm-mm.
Never.
No, that was where we made our choice to live, and that's where we always wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And
Well, Mama's born in Philadelphia,
yeah.
so she's had experience
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
Then I guess out to
Yeah,
Mayflower for a little
she
while.
lived in Mayflower. She lived in Dallas when they first moved back from Philadelphia. They wound up in Dallas for a while, and then she lived in South Longview down there. So she's been around more than me.
It's yeah. I mean, you made it down the driveway.
Yeah, I made it up out from the middle of the property out to the front road. So.
And see, that's totally in my mind. I always want to hear your perspective on that. You know, if it was just always because when I got out of high school, before I got out of high school, I wanted to go to University of Maine. I just wanted to get as far away from Longview as I could. And then I turned around and I thought about it. I said, man, Pops he went about 100 yards and was content there. I mean, was that intentional or just kind of feel like your path?
Well, I think that what it just made at the time, it just made financial sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it made. I didn't have any. I wasn't like a lot of the people that I graduated with. You know, they just shot up, and I mean, everybody seemed like they were moving to Houston or Dallas. You know, and so I wanted to stay local, and I wanted to get me a job, and I mean, I wanted to go to college or whatever, and play, but everything was pretty much around close. Sure. I didn't have no desires to spread my wings and
see what else is out there.
Yeah, see what else is out there. That was just I was probably out of my siblings, I was probably more the homebody myself. I was content where I grew up at, and so at that time, when Sheila and I got married, decided to get married, we only talked about one thing, and that was living out well. Matter of fact, my dad actually talked my wife more into it. She was saying she was uncomfortable in the country.
Sure.
Growing up the way she did, she was uncomfortable, but
it was probably even darker out there than it is now. Back then.
Man, and you talking about, and you said, I mean, you think about $22,000 now, but back then,
that's a lot.
That was. I mean, when I started back then, when I started at Eastman, and it was one of the best paying jobs. I was making $7.50 an hour.
Wow.
Starting pay. And as time went along, cost of living and a lot of things. So the salaries, as the cost of living started growing, then we raised in here, annually, and so it got from where. But back then, $7.50 an hour could get chewed up pretty quick too.
Yeah.
And it's not. To me, it's not always just the house. That's the biggest expense, but it's what got you what you got parked beside it. How many, what you got sitting on the side of it. A lot of those things, and it compounds. So everybody's thinking is that okay? So you got to have if you got a new house, you got to have. Everybody's got to have a new vehicle, and then you gotta buy new clothes, and you gotta have everything. Just got to be brand spanking new. And if you start out that way, and then you find out later on you can't keep up with it, so you just start compounding, and in order to keep that up, I I gotta get more help from here, more. The next thing you know, you paying all kinds of things, and
you compounding debt instead of interest.
Yeah. So now, even if I make big money, then I gotta, it's steady. What they said, that the average family nowadays is only 1 or 2 paychecks away from
caving in.
Yeah, from caving in.
Under. Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you something, son. Really, that's something that I never really. I guess I'm anti-debt. I don't. Everything. When I think about myself, it was about. I've always wanted to make sure that even if I had to do without, I want to make sure that my family has, what they needed.
Right.
And so overall, we chose to live moderate. The first spanking brand new vehicle that we bought was that 1996 red Chevy Tahoe. That drove y'all around all over. That was the only, even now, that's the only brand new vehicle that we ever got from right off of that we ordered.
I mean, you had
even
it for
now
20 years.
We had it until that Toyota Camry that we bought when Aaron was at. So I'm going to say about 16, 17 years, had almost 500,000 miles on it.
Wow. We went a lot of places in that.
Yeah. Yeah, y'all survived some trips and, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But, and that's what my thinking, my approach was kind of different than, what a lot of people, I saw myself, and it was not only how I saw myself, but at the time it was, I was the sole supplier, I was the, it.
Right.
I mean, so we had to do whatever we did. That's why we made the choices that we made to pick our spots and do what we needed to do to make sure that everybody had everything that they needed.
Yeah.
We prayed for it. You talk about the establishment of a lot of things. I tell them at the church all the time. I say, we used to tell our children, whatever you grew, however you growing up, whatever you were born into, it wasn't your choice. We had already made some decisions before we even talked about bringing children into the world.
Right.
We decided what kind of people we were going to be before y'all. All right. We decided what a lot of things that we was and was not going to do, with not just us in mind, but we had y'all in mind.
Right.
So whatever we needed to do to make our current and even our latter life better, that's what we came to agreement on a lot of things.
And why did y'all, and we get ready to wrap it up,
okay,
but why did y'all decide to make all the improvements after? I need to get this on record. A house is the same way for 21 years of my life.
Yep.
Aaron gets headed out to U of H, and all of a sudden,
2010,
the house looked totally different. We come in there, and it's open. Kitchen is moved all the way to the other end of the house. I figured it was probably
well, it was still
easier to upkeep without all the kids running around tearing up stuff.
Well, I tell you, I really the reason why at that time, because prior to then, it was more about y'all than us. We were, like I said,
it's fair, and it's fair to say we done our part. No,
yeah, but see, when you got, you wanna make sure you stay in the right position.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
Charlotte was you were right in the middle of college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was I think around my junior year.
Yeah, Aaron, 2010, Charlotte. I mean,
Jaden was born, so I know y'all having to.
Yeah, we having
help her get on her feet.
Yeah, and I mean, just they moved in with us.
Mm-hmm.
Live with us all that time.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte, Jaden, and Kenzie.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we were having to to kind of, and then when that clearing, when that opening opened up, we finally got them out. They moved out, and Aaron is getting ready to go off to college, and so I'm 50 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, so now in about 10 years, I'm gonna be talking about, and we just decided that we're not gonna build a new house,
right?
At this point,
mm-hmm.
This is like the house that we're going to be in the rest of our life.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get it how we feel like we want to live in it.
Makes sense.
And the time was right. The finances was right.
Yeah.
We were in the best financial position we had ever been in to get it done, and not have to get into debt.
Sure.
Remember, it's all about not getting in no.
Yeah.
Once
y'all
you
in the line.
Once you get free, you don't want to get back in.
Yeah. And it's always good when you're aligning your goals. Y'all trying to run a household that you already established and keep it going. We find ourselves now, trying to say, hey, what is it that we envision for our house, and making sure we stay along those guidelines. So I, for one, I appreciate it. I appreciate that y'all had the foresight, had the determination, the discipline, all those things that's required in order to, to do the things that y'all did and rear up a family. Pops, I appreciate it.
And I would say this, son, after all is said and done, you wind up looking more wise than you really are. What I mean, it's like a lot of things that we decide to do earlier. We don't see a clear picture of how it's gonna be later, but things tend to work out when you do things a certain way. They tend to work out better for you than what you even really anticipate.
Well, doesn't the scripture say that wisdom will be proven by her children?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then to me, that's like, hey, whether your decision was wise or not, you'll find out.
Yeah.
A little bit later down the line. So
and the last thing I want to say is, I guess we had to choose to kind of step out of some of the trends. Some of the things that are luring. You get drawn into, and a lot of times people wind up in situations. It's not because they can, but it's because they developed a want to, knowing good and well that they can. So if you can keep from doing things that you can't do, and do what you can, then wait till you can,
and then do
it.
Makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. And I think it's a great way to cap all this off.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I always, encourage anybody that's buying a house, hey, let's set a budget up front.
Do what you can.
What's your budget? The bank's gonna give you this big number. Hey, you can afford $300,000, but what are you gonna be paying every month? What can you, and also be able to meet your goals of, hey, I want to be able to put something in the house. I want to be able to put something away. I want to be able to take care of my children, maybe the college fund. All that needs to be considered. You get your monthly budget. Let's stay right there. I'm your accountability partner. Don't go no higher than this.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's all, super important. And Pop, I appreciate your time.
Hey, man, I appreciate it.
I think we should do this again.
All
I love
right.
you. Love you,
too,
Dad.
man.
And thank you for everything you've done. And to everybody that's tuned in, thank y'all so much for coming by, checking out. We'll have another episode coming out very soon, episode 2. We got some special guests coming up for everybody this season. I think it's going to be super informative, helpful, entertaining for you, all that wrapped up in one. Please subscribe. Consider sharing it with somebody that you know that is a homeowner, wants to be a homeowner. Somewhere along in that vein, somebody lives in the East Texas area. All that's going to be beneficial for people moving forward. Question for you in the chat there, in the comment section. Let me know if you grew up in a single family household where your parents or guardians, did they own that space, and how did that shape how you looked at home ownership or renting in your grown years as well? Thank y'all so much. And Pops, thanks once again.
My pleasure.
Love you, Dad.
Love you too, man.
All right.
Always.
Thank y'all out there.
All right.
All righty.